Hello everyone. If you are new to my channel, then consider liking and subscribing. It will make me feel wonderful if you do it, thanks. By the way, I also have a Luffy fan fiction channel. If you are interested, the link is in the description. Rikudou, the One Above All by Novus Maximus. An extraordinary man dies, Naruto of course, in one world and awakes in another. A genius unrivaled in the use of his abilities that he once thought to be mere fiction. Witness the rise of the pillar of strength that shall hold the world up with the godly power that is within all. For he is the one avatar of the six paths reborn upon this world. He will be extremely overpowered and will have Renegan and EMs. I don't own anything, adios.
The internship system of UA is a curious thing. On one hand, it gives students the opportunity to experience how hero agencies work and function, and on the other it allows agencies to scout potential talents in the next generation. In a way, UA has perfected a way that allows students to get a head start on their hero careers. I too benefited from this system. My internship with All Might was all the rage a year ago, and from that single week stems most my success as a pro hero. Now it's my time to play the mentor to two hero aspirants, Mirio Tagata and Hitoshi Shinso. Originally it would not have been permitted for Shinso to take part in the internship program, and that would have been okay, because Aizawa had already staked a claim on him. No one is stupid enough to go against Aizawa in this matter, but I managed to talk him into it. While undoubtedly Shinso would be a terror with the capture weapons like Aizawa, I couldn't help but feel that he could do better with a short sword in hand. I've seen how good he was after a month of tutelage under Izuku, who is still merely a novice in swordsmanship. Shinso has a talent for bladed weapons, and even with his somewhat odd quirk, he isn't like Aizawa in that he can level the playing field against most opponents. No, he needs something more than just a smart piece of cloth to get him through his career as a hero. To that end, I offered my services to teach him swordsmanship. I have to say that Shinso is an incredible student. He catches on quickly and his movements are efficient. Now if only I could correct this attitude of his to be hyper-defensive in combat, I could call his training a true success. You need to pay attention to the changing battlefield, I said. Shinso glared at me as he rose from the floor and took his ready position. I couldn't help but sigh at the sight of it. It wasn't bad by any stretch of the imagination, it was just so defensive that it was nearly useless in a real fight. I took my own ready position with my bakken. Come on, attack me, I said. You aren't going to attack me again. What are you, chicken? Bit back Shinso. I snorted, and as I went to reply, I felt an intrusion in my mind similar to a genjutsu. A quick flare of chakra was all it took to rid myself of the foreign influence. That isn't going to work, Shinso, I said as I launched in a lightning-fast attack. In 3 moves, he was already on the ground and his bakken was in my hand. Damn it, how are you so fast? I raised an eyebrow. How are you so slow? That was my base speed. It was true. I hadn't used a single drop of chakra in this fight. Heck, I even went as far as to strap on weights that will counteract the passive effects on my body that chakra has. You need to stop relying so much on your quirk, Shinso, I said. He looked at me confused. But isn't the training that we're doing now supposed to help me be a better fighter with my quirk? He asked. I looked at him. Is that what he thought we were doing? No, the point of all this is to help you get a better grasp on swordsmanship. This is meant to add another tool to your arsenal and help when mere hand-to-hand combat and your quirk is not sufficient. He was still unconvinced. Tell me, would you have been able to beat the girl Form 1B in the sports festival without your sword? No, exactly. Stop looking at this training as something that will help your quirk. Your focus on your quirk is a fallacy that can be your downfall. In fact, it has been the downfall of many heroes in this age where quirks are viewed as the answer to all the world's problems, I said. Shinso nodded and went on the attack. I defeated him in 2 strikes. After I pulled him up, I went over his stances and techniques, explaining when and where to use them and how to do so. Training Shinso is a lot of work, but it's not as much as it had been with Izuku. Don't get me wrong, Izuku is an excellent hand-to-hand combatant with a healthy dose of long-range ability for good measure, it's just that he's shit with weapons. Not that I can blame him for that, everyone has different preferences when it comes to combat, but I did make sure that he was at least passable in a sword fight should he ever need it. I left Shinso to rehearse the katas for the technique I just showed him. I hope that he will become competent enough to switch to sparring with each other soon. Just practicing won't do his reflexes any good, and they are already terrible. As I passed through the door to the training room, I spawned a shadow clone to stand by it and inform me should Shinso want something or if someone else entered the room without my permission. Secrecy was key to Shinso's success as an underground pro hero, and I can never fully trust the people that work for me at Might Tower. Because the agency is so big and a center for one of the biggest hero factions in existence, there is a lot of traffic throughout the lower levels, and I can never be too sure if the lower ranks of the agency aren't on someone's payroll as a spy, or if they would simply spill info to a news station for a large sum of cash to make their life better. It was a sad fact, but one that I had to take into account nonetheless. Still, this situation did come with a silver lining. I walked out of the elevator I had previously taken and headed for one of the training rooms on the lower floors. As I entered I was treated to an amusing sight. Mirio was fighting against one of my clones while another, hanged as an old man dressed like the stereotypical mystical sensei that one would expect to find in a mountain somewhere, was pointing out the flaws in his technique. Speaking of such figures, I should really go see what old man Jian is doing these days and if he's given up on that ridiculous codename of custodian, not that its meaning was wrong. That man was easily one of the strongest martial artists still alive, having been born at the time where there wasn't even the notion of quirks around. It's ironic that, as he trained as a Buddhist monk he manifested the quirk, prime life. While he does continue to age, albeit at a much slower rate, he's still as strong as he was in his prime. I should know, after all he kicked my butt more times than I can count when I was a kid. Even to this day, without chakra enhancement I couldn't stand a chance of beating him in a pure taijutsu match. Anyways, back to Mirio. In the 3 days he's been here, he's made quite some progress honing his combat skills. Having to deal with an opponent that used battle precognition made sure of that. He learned to be unpredictable, though I'm not sure how well this would work against someone like Night Eye, but it was more than sufficient to give my shadow clone a run for its money. Of course, it wasn't using chakra actively since that would be against this exercise's point. But still it was an impressive feat for what was basically an ordinary human teenager. He was progressing nicely. I could already see that his form had less holes than before and if he could keep up this level of intense training for a month or two, I'm sure that he would be a pain to fight against even for someone like Yoroi Musha. That man was a monster in battle. Honestly, if he had wider appeal he could very well breach the top 5. But then again, when you look like Santa cosplaying as a Japanese warlord I suppose there aren't many parents out there that would want their kids to look up at such a person. Not that I'm better mind you, it's just that I managed to twist the public's image of me to that of a young prince going through the trials necessary to attain the throne of his father. Don't look at me like that. People think crazy shit up all the time. Honestly I blame it all on Hawks. The door to my office hissed open and I entered. As soon as it shut behind me and the seal on it glowed blue as confirmation of its activation I allowed myself to slouch and collapse on the campaign bed that I had hidden away behind my desk. Another day, another headache, as the saying goes. Actually, it was mid-afternoon, but I didn't care. I was up all night tracking down Allele. I would have let Mirio take the lead and just stick a shadow clone on his tail to monitor and intervene should it be necessary. Unfortunately, this particular person was a high-level broker in the underworld, mostly specializing in drugs and quirk and human trafficking. From what I noticed from doing raids against several safe houses and distribution points is that most of the human trafficking revolves around quirkless kids. Mostly pre-teens, though I did see a few teenagers here and there. Not surprising considering the stigma and dare I say it shame concerning the quirkless. Japanese society hasn't changed that much from what it used to be in the 21st century. Even now there are reports of exhaustion-related deaths. Any family with a quirkless child was doomed. Most often than not, the parents would split up and the child, usually around the age of 6, would either live in an abusive household or be abandoned at an orphanage somewhere. From there, it was easy pickings for any thug involved with human trafficking and these kids would end up abused in the worst ways and eventually disposed of before they reach 20. No, I won't let Mirio dirty his hands with matters such as these, because I'm sure that it would break him. In this age, children aren't taught the heroic legends of old. The ancient tales of the Iliad and the Odyssey are relegated to those few still interested in history. The rich folklore of Japan has lost its oral tradition as well. I should know, when I was young I used to tell Izuku stories before bed. I would tell him of ancient heroes and even regurgitate the plot of some movies and TV series one used to watch that are no longer available nowadays. The people of this era are weak and fickle things. Even blessed with all the power their quirks give them, there are no more true heroes around. There is no one you can point to and say that their name would go down in history, that their legend will be passed down from parent to child like the tales of ancient heroes. I drifted off to a dreamless slumber only to be awakened a few hours later by my phone. Without looking at the screen, I answered. Hello, you've reached the personal number of the pro hero Rikudou. How may I help you? I asked in a flat tone. Ni-san, there are no moves in Hosu, yelled out the voice of my brother. In an instant I jackknifed into a sitting position and flooded my body with chakra, using it as makeshift adrenaline. I was up in an instant. What? I shouted. One just crashed through the train and Gran Torino took off after him, but Ida isn't answering and I'm worried in. Enough, I said. Izuku fell silent. Is there a policeman near you or something? I asked. Yes, there's a wounded hero and a guard tending to him, said Izuku. Put me on speaker, I said. I waited for a moment to gather my thoughts and spoke. To any law enforcement and pro heroes in the vicinity, this is the pro hero Rikudou. Identify yourselves, I demanded. A squeak was heard and the phone was fumbled around a bit. Why yes sir, I am Hiroteki Yamabushi. I work as a security guard on the train that was attacked, came the strained voice of a security guard. You'll do. Now listen up. I hereby grant permission to one Izuku Midoriya and any other Class 1A students with him to engage in battle and to use their quirks in defense of others and themselves in accordance with Act 3. Subsection 4b of the Pro-Hero Legislative Code. Anyone who hears this announcement may be liable to be summoned as witnesses in court. Is that understood? Why yes sir, Crystal, replied the stuttering voice of the guard. Good enough. Izuku, go and find your friend. Engage only if necessary. I'm on my way, I said. I could hear some cheers in the background as I closed the connection and went to don my armor. Every minute was precious and I couldn't waste any time. Izuku did not hesitate. As soon as his brother was finished giving his proclamation, he flooded his body with chakra and allowed one for all to the it over and bring forth that wellspring of power that turned All Might from a quirkless idealist to the man he was today. Electric green lightning erupted across his body and with a single push, he was off, leaving behind an odd crowd and a trail of green light. The streets were in chaos, but he powered through, running across walls and leaping from building to building, all in the hopes to find his friend. Tenya! Yelled a voice. Izuku instantly locked towards the source of that shout and his eyes widened as he saw Manuel, Ida's mentor. His eyes widened even further as he saw the destruction the three Nomu were wreaking. Shit, what do I do? I can't afford a long drawn-out battle with those Nomu, but the heroes over there are useless. Please tell me I didn't forget to pack the scroll. Izuku stopped on the roof of one of the nearby buildings and began to search his pockets. He breathed a sigh of relief as he found the scroll he was looking for. Putting on a determined face, he jumped. At the apex of his jump, Izuku drew 3 kunai from his pouch and threw them at the Nomu, one for each. At first everyone was confused, but Izuku landed soon after and unfurled the scroll on the ground. Several quick hand seals later, he slapped down his palm on the center of the scroll. Fuinjutsu. Chains of Heaven. Yelled Izuku from each of the thrown kunai. A green circle spun into existence beneath the Nomu and then connected with a line of chakra to the main scroll. From there, another larger circle spun around the scroll, this time golden in color, and from it were launched heavy chains at the Nomu. The Nomu tried to avoid them, but the chains were too fast. They pierced the limbs of the Nomu and wrapped around them, binding them completely. Seeing this, Izuku took a metal spike from his belt and slammed it down into the center of the seal. There, that should do it. I had to find Ida quickly, before my chakra drains completely, though Izuku as he got up and sped off unhearing of the cries to wait that were raising from the heroes he left behind. Damn it, damn it. The road from Might Tower to Hosu was long and I didn't dare waste the chakra necessary for flight at near Mach speed. I was stuck with running. Not that I was much slower this way. Clad in blue lightning indicative of the lightning chakra armor, I sped past cars towards Hosu. I just pray I make it in time. Still, Nomu. What the heck was the League and All for One doing? This wasn't rational. There's no way that All for One would waste resources just to mindlessly attack a city, unless, no, this wasn't AFO's hand at play. This was definitely that man-child Shigaraki. I did theorize that Shigaraki may try to bring Stain into his group, but the attacks of these Nomu were not targeted. From what I could make out from the radio chatter in my ear, the Nomu, 5 in number, were all wreaking as much havoc as possible without any set target in mind. No matter, I would deal with them later. It's more than likely that Stain has had a fallout with the League and this is just some sort of twisted pissing contest started by Shigaraki because things didn't go his way. Such a thing would not be out of character. Even so, this pissing contest was costing thousands in propriety damage and more than a few human lives. I shook my head. I can't afford to have rage and anger cloud my judgment. For better or worse, Izuku was there and he was powerful enough to beat the Nomu that stood in his path. From what I heard, Endeavor managed to cook one alive and they seemed to be reacting slower than the ones I fought at USJ. This just further supports my hypothesis that this attack is just Shigaraki throwing a temper tantrum. I need to get there faster. My chakra flared and even more condensed lightning-natured chakra was shunted from my coils to my muscles, skin and nerves. Spreading his senses out, Izuku tried to locate his wayward classmate. Damn it, Nisan's still better than me at this and I'm supposed to be the one with the sensory ability, yelled Izuku in his head. What he was trying to do is make the Nafor all connect with the ambient nature energy of the world. Of course, the quirk was quite stubborn and would not lend its power so easily. Izuku knew from what his brother told him that he should be able to eventually spread his senses out across the entirety of Japan and have such a sensory acuity that even Ragdoll's search quirk would be rendered near useless when compared to him. Of course, that was just the theory and so far he'd been unable to actually put it into practice. In the end he was forced to rely on his brother's tried and true method of chakra sensing. That wouldn't be so bad if it didn't require a shit ton of chakra to cover the area needed for his search. Damn it, who the hell made so many back alleys across the city? Honestly, it's like someone was waving a flag in the face of all the villains. Please do crimes here. I swear I'm going to have a talk with the city designer later, raged Izuku in his head. Just as he was about to stop and send out the chakra pulse for the sensing technique, his passive senses came across the very familiar signature of Ida. Found you! Launching himself in the air, Izuku managed to arrive just on time to save Ida from being stabbed through the back of the neck by a sword. "Midoriya!" yelled Ida. "Can't you move? Get out of here already!" yelled back Izuku. "I can't move, he must have done something when he cut me. But what are you doing here?" said Ida. "Hee hee, more fakes come," came a voice from the alleyway. Izuku turned his attention back to the threat at hand and settled in a fighting stance, drawing a kunai from his pouch. "Hero killer Stain," replied Izuku coldly. The hero killer cocked his head to the side and looked at Izuku strangely. "You have nothing to do with this," yelled Ida. "What?" asked Izuku, not taking his eyes off Stain for a single second. "This is my fight, my duty to avenge my brother, don't you dare butt in," yelled Ida. "Shut up," yelled back Izuku, cutting Ida off. "What the hell is wrong with you? You must have hit your head or something, because that's not how a hero thinks." When Stain heard this, his grin widened. "You understand, don't you? Inheritor of All Might's will," he said. "And what the hell do you want?" shot back Izuku. "I just want to cleanse the world of fakes like these two. Surely you can see that. Their corrupt and false ways stain the good name of the true heroes everywhere," said Stain. "And by that you mean only All Might?" asked Izuku. Stain looked surprised. "Don't be so surprised. I researched all I could find about Uchizome Akaguro the moment I found out about what you did to Ida's brother, Ingenium," said Izuku. "Then you understand, my will, my duty, my conviction," said Stain as he took a step forward. "I do, but that doesn't mean that I won't bring you down right here and now," said Izuku. Stain stopped and stared. "Don't you dare, he's mine," yelled Ida. "Be silent. I thought that you had more brains in that empty head of yours than to go up against a serial killer without even a serious plan," yelled back Izuku. "Those that stand in my way will die," declared Stain. "So be it," replied Izuku. In an instant, Izuku was upon him. Sparks were shed as Izuku's kunai bounced off Stain's hastily raised sword. The blow was of such force though, that it broke through Stain's guard. Without wasting a second, Izuku pressed his advantage and tried to get a good hit in on the hero killer. Unfortunately, Izuku's original assessment on Stain's martial prowess was wrong, and the latter managed to catch Izuku's fist with his offhand and bring down his word with the other in an attempt to kill Izuku. The blade was stopped dead in its tracks by Izuku's kunai, settling the two in a lock. "You're good. Who taught you how to fight?" asked Stain. Izuku didn't reply, but instead he grabbed onto the wrist of Stain's sword hand and pulled down on his hands, causing his head to come smashing down in Izuku's knee. Now dazed, Stain was kicked into a wall with enough force to shatter it. "That, you don't need to know," said Izuku as he stalked the hero killer. He knew that the was not out, even if the kick had broken a couple of Stain's ribs. That was proven true when a moment later, Stain re-engaged Izuku. Izuku blocked his strike but was unable to prevent Stain from disengaging and throwing the knife at him. Thinking it was meant for him, Izuku dodged. Moments later his eyes widened as he deduced that the knife was not aimed at him, but at Ida. Without a second thought, Izuku folded a hand seal and was instantly replaced with the knife, leaving the knife to fall harmlessly to the ground. Rising from his crouched position, Izuku glared at Stain. "Really now? Attacking non-combatants? Do you not have a single shred of pride within that disgusting soul of yours?" "TCH, I need not take any pride in my work," said Stain. "That's not what I meant," growled Izuku. "Midoriya," yelled another voice. Izuku's head immediately snapped to the source of the sound, and to his great surprise he saw Shoto at the entrance of the alleyway. That was all Stain needed as he charged Izuku, only to be cut off by a huge wall of ice. Seeing his opening, Izuku picked up Ida and pulled back to the entrance of the alleyway. "What's happening to the seal? It's draining my chakra faster than it should. If this goes on, I will have to sever the connection to the seal matrix," through Izuku. With his prey gone, Stain turned his attention back to Native, the hero he originally intended to kill. Just before he reached him and killed him, Izuku appeared, cutting off his access to him. "TCH, annoying brat," said Stain as he was forced to dodge a barrage of kicks and punches. "My strength is diminishing and one for all isn't helping much either. Something must be seriously wrong for the seal to draw that much chakra. Ni-san, hurry up," thought Izuku. Right behind Izuku came Shoto, who gingerly picked up Native and began bedding back to the small ice fortress he made around Ida. "No," cried Stain in a feat of extraordinary gymnastics. Stain twisted around and kicked Izuku away as he went into a dead sprint for Native and Shoto. Just as he was about to reach the two, Izuku yet again appeared between Stain and his target. Deciding to be proactive for once, Izuku caught the sword by the blade and broke it. That act stunned Stain just enough for Izuku to be able to shove his fist in his stomach so hard that Stain was instantly launched back and smashed against a hastily erected wall of ice. Deciding that discretion was the better form of valor, Izuku snatched up both Shoto and Native and retreated to the ice fort that housed Ida. "Keep them safe," said Izuku. Shoto nodded and resealed the ice fort, all the while bolstering its walls. Turning around, Izuku stared down the now manic Stain. "You dare impede my mission?" Raged Stain. The hairs on Izuku's neck stood up at the feeling of bloodlust that Stain was emitting. "I need my full strength. I just hope that I bought enough time for the heroes to deal with the Nomu, Fuinjutsu, Kai." Izuku took his stance, and with his reserves dwindling dangerously low, he called upon one for all. "Even with this measly 3%, I swear I'll save everyone." I arrived just in time to kick off a Nomu from Gran Torino and shove a Rasengan through its chest. "Are you alright, old man?" I asked. "Hey, I may have gotten old, but I'm not helpless, boy," replied Gran Torino. I looked around at the burning buildings. Several hand seals later, several low-powered water bullets splashed on the burning buildings, quenching the fires. I turned to Gran Torino. "Where's Izuku?" I asked. "I left him back on the train. He should be safe," replied the old man. This stunned me. "You what? I thought that he was calling me for backup before heading off with you." Gran Torino looked at me, seemingly understanding what I'd done, and placed his head in his hands. "That damned brat, he's going to be the death of me," muttered Gran Torino. "Go and search for him. I'll be there as soon as I can," I said. Gran Torino nodded and took off. I too vanished in a body flicker to the building. From there I could clearly see a good deal of the city burning. I vanished once again and appeared next to a flying Nomu. Lightning coalesced around my hand and extended in a blade-like shape. The Rikuri swiftly cut through the wing of the Nomu. The creature screeched as it fell, but it was quickly silenced by being sliced to pieces by a wind-style vacuum web. I landed next to the bloodbath and saw Endeavor battling it out with the other two creatures. One had already lost both its legs and one arm was nothing but charred meat. The other one was tricky in that it had a chameleon function. A quick flash of chakra and my Sharingan powered up in my eyes. With these eyes I could clearly see the outline of the creature. Several hand seal later, a high-powered wind slash severed the creature in half. It fell to the ground screeching as it bled out. "Secure the villains," I heard Endeavor yell as he turned and ran down the street. That somewhat confused me, but as I stretched out my chakra senses I couldn't help but feel one of Izuku's chakra transceivers stuck to the ground. From the charred paper fluttering around it, I could tell that he had used this seal as a possible way to restrain the villains, even if only for a moment. I couldn't dally. This situation needed to be dealt with quickly. Izuku was breathing heavily as he took in the bleeding and injured form of the hero killer before him. The fight had been going for some time, and despite the fact that he could go all out now that the people he was protecting were safe, he didn't have the power necessary for any jutsu more chakra intensive than a replacement or a flash step. That and Stain would not go down. Every time they clashed, he would get injured worse and worse, and yet he would still get up. Not that Izuku was unharmed. His armor was all scratched and scuffed from when he had been grappling with Stain. It did its job, though, and kept Stain's blades from piercing his armor. So long as he didn't get a cut on his face, he was safe. Honestly, it was times like these that Izuku wished he had a helmet to protect himself. Just as he was preparing to engage the hero killer once again, he heard the sound of steps on pavement. We were commanded by Endeavor to provide assistance. "Wait, is that the hero killer, Stain?" asked one of the sidekicks. "Get back, he's still dangerous," said Izuku as he took his battle stance once again. It was then that the heroes noticed the 15-year-old in green and black armor who was looking like he had just ran a marathon. "Midoriya!" yelled out Gran Torino. This sparked recognition throughout the heroes assembled. This was the younger brother of Rikudou, the symbol of strength and the one who was proclaimed as the up-and-coming symbol of hope. "Even more fakes appear," said Stain. The attention once again turned to him. "Their foul hearts stain this society. They must be purged. Someone must be stained by the blood of these false heroes if we are to have a just society," yelled Stain. Just then, Endeavor appeared from the corner. "What are you just standing around over there? He must have." "Endeavor, faker of fakes, you must be purged," yelled Stain in a mad frenzy. His bloodlust was so terrible that everyone froze up, even Todoroki, Ida and Native, who had come out of the ice fort when they heard the other heroes arrive. All froze, except Izuku. He was standing as firm as ever, even if his body was all but screaming at him to stop and rest. Not yet, he told himself, not until this battle is over. Stain broke out into a run, bellowing a harsh howl that served to terrify all who heard it, all except Izuku. Calling up the last dregs of his chakra, Izuku appeared in a flash step next to Stain, and with as much power from one for all as he could safely draw, he punched the hero killer in the face, sending him careening into the wall on a nearby building. "You're not purging anyone anymore, not on my watch," said Izuku. As the dust settled, the others could see Stain, bloodied and broken, as he sauntered forwards. It looked like it was taking all he had not to collapse. You are worthy. The only one other than All Might," yelled Stain. In that moment, like a missile from the sky, Rikudou arrived, Sharingan blazing and chakras swirling around him in a veritable storm. But just like that, Stain fell to his knees and passed out. Those watching were shocked until Izuku too began to wobble and collapse, and he would have, were it not for Madara catching him before he touched the ground. Hello Japan. This is your host Setsuna Sakura. Today we have a special guest with us in the studio. The youngest hero in his Atori and heir apparent to All Might himself, Rikudou. Thank you for the opportunity, Miss Sakura, I said. Oh, my what a gentleman. Though, if you don't mind me asking, is it true that you were there in the Hosu incident yesterday? That's true, I managed to arrive in Hosu just in time to stop the Nomu. For those of you that remain unaware, yesterday evening there was an attack in Hosu City perpetrated by 5 criminals, of which only one survived. The pro-heroes, Endeavor and Rikudou, were the ones who took down these villains. On that note, how do you feel about the fact that you were responsible for the death of 2 people? I believe that I must clarify something first. The Nomu are not people, not anymore. From the remains of the 2 Nomu I fought against at the USJ attack a few weeks ago, we learned that the Nomu were manufactured. They did this by injecting innocents with various drugs meant to enhance their quirk factors and give them increased regeneration. Oh, my, this is terrible. Who would do such a thing? So far the evidence is still inconclusive, but rest assured that Might Tower will release a press statement the moment we uncover these dastardly villains. Well, we can all pray for your success. Remaining at the topic of Hosu, the biggest news circulating the internet these days is the act of vigilantism that your brother and the winner of the UA Sports Festival committed. This being said, while we do not condone such action, we are nonetheless thankful that he managed to not only survive, but bring the hero killer Stain to justice. I'm afraid to say that you have your facts wrong, Miss Sakura. Oh, how so? Before my brother leapt into the fray he did call me. Using my authority as a pro-hero I allowed him to use his quirk in defense of his person and others. We did not know that, but still, isn't that the job of the hero supervising his internship? Or did it not occur to him that by bypassing normal protocol he could bring down accusations of nepotism upon your person? Gran Torino, the hero overseeing his internship, was engaged in combat with a Nomu at the time. My brother did the logical thing in calling me. Still, some of our viewers must be wondering if there truly was a need for your brother in the field. There was undoubtedly a need for him. Before Endeavor and I arrived, he was the first to confront the Nomu, even going so far as to expend a significant portion of his energy on restraints for not 1 but 3 of the Nomu. Restraints that held on until Endeavor arrived, thus limiting the amount of destruction the Nomu caused. Furthermore, he was essential in saving not only the hero native, but also his own classmate, the brother of Ingenium, Tenya Iida, from almost certain death at the hands of the hero killer Stain. Well, he seems like quite the upstanding citizen. It seems that he truly lives up to the expectation placed on him as a pillar of our society, even at such a young age. The aftermath of the Hosu incident, as it's now called, was something I honestly had not expected. Between Stain's capture and the League of Villains' attack on the city itself, I found little time to deal with the rumors that had been sprouting. It was in the early morning of the first day after the attack that the video was released. What video, you may be asking? Well, that's easy, the video that shared Stain's entire backstory and shows live video for nearly 3 minutes of Izuku fighting Stain to a standstill to prevent him from getting to the very suspiciously placed ice fort behind him. Of course, that's not all. Whomever shot that video somehow managed to get audio of that fight, and with it Stain's proclamation that Izuku was the only one worthy of being called a true hero alongside All Might. You can see where this is going, can't you? I'm thankful that I had Izuku and his friends corralled in a hospital while I'm off running damage control. I mean, seriously people, a mass murderer was just captured and the first thing you talk about is whether or not you should punish the one that brought him to justice? I mean, come on, if it was me in that fight, Stain would have either gotten a Chidori to the chest or would have had his head caved in by a Rasengan. Still, there won't be any repercussions. In fact, I'm heading over to the hospital room to brief Izuku and company on what was to happen. As I arrive at the room they were housed in, I see 2 police officers at the door. When they see me, they gulp. "Sir, this room is restricted," said one of the soon-to-be corpses. "And why is that?" "I have every right to visit my brother in the hospital," I said lightly. The man gulped. I could see sweat forming on his forehead. "Sorry sir, I can't allow you inside. I see." I closed my eyes and opened them, only now they possessed my activated blood-red Sharingan. "Let me give you some friendly advice. Do you think that you can keep me out of that room?" I asked. He shook his head nervously and the second one behind him was trembling in fear. "I thought so. Now step aside before you do something rash and risk having an accident." The man had most likely never moved so fast in his entire life. I reached for the door handle and pulled it, slamming the door open, and stepped in. I surveyed the scene. Izuku and Iida were obviously being chastised and Shoto appeared to be riled up and on the verge of a massive mistake. Meanwhile, Manuel and Gran Torino were standing to the side as spectators. I turned my Sharingan gaze on the big dog standing in the center of the room. From what I could read of his face, he thought he would have more time. "Would you look at that, the chief of police came to visit. I mean, this is an occasion, but hardly one that would necessitate the stationing of guards outside this room. Especially since they were given orders to keep even me out, wouldn't you agree? I asked. A small shock went through the room. Pro hero Rikudou, I'm terribly sorry about that misunderstanding, woof, said the chief as he bowed. Well, at least he knows how to be diplomatic with his betters. See to it that it does not happen again. Now, I believe that I had sorted out all the legalities of yesterday's events, so pray tell, what are you doing here? I do not recall giving you permission to interrogate my brother, I said while crossing my arms. This was not an interrogation, merely some friendly advice for an up-and-coming hero, he said, still bowing. Very well, see to it that such advice is given only when asked for. After all, we wouldn't want something to happen that would destabilize society, now would we? I said, letting my presence leak out a bit. Of course not, Rikudou. I will take my leave now, said the dog whose fur was visibly shinier. Go. The rest of you leave as well, and I need not say that this discussion never happened, I said. Gran Torino looked at me and held my gaze as the chief led a confused and frightened Manuel out of the room. Finally, Gran Torino broke the stare contest and left as well, closing the door in his wake. I closed my eyes, and when I opened them, they were back to their original green. I turned to the three brats still in the room who were all looking at me with various degrees of shock. Ni-san, began Izuku, but I cut him off, not now. First of all, I must address the moron in the room, and only after that will I get to you two idiots, I said. I turned to the Iida Saiyan. He was standing upright with his head bowed. Do you realize what you did? I asked. Yes, please forgive me, sir. I was foolish and stupid, said Tenya as he bowed. You know, I happen to know Ingenium. I began. He lifted his head to look at me, but remained bowed. One of his main motivations for his work was to make a better world for his little brother. In that he and I are rather similar. I paused. So I can only ask, what manner of madness had possessed you to think you even had a 1% chance of taking on and beating a villain they'd with far more combat experience than every person in this room combined, Barney, couldn't take? I am sorry, I was foolish and blinded by hate, please give me another chance. Oh, don't worry about that. I made sure that your name came up only as a victim. But rest assured that the next time you do something as monumentally foolish as this, you will be expelled from UA faster than you can blink, I said. I understand, thank you for the opportunity, said Iida. And as for you two, I said as I turned to them. Both of them looked uncomfortable being put under the spotlight. I sighed and pinched the bridge of my nose. I looked back up at them. I won't fault you for trying to protect your friend. This seemed to surprise them. Then, what about what the chief said? Asked Shoto. That man does good, but he overstepped his bounds when he approached you directly. To be honest, if it weren't for me and Endeavor, you all would be facing charges of vigilantism and would probably be expelled from UA altogether and forbidden from entering another hero course, I said. This seemed to strike a chord in them. Despite how Chief Tsurigame may appear, he would have given you an out from this situation, if only for the fact that you are still good eggs, I said. I turned to Izuku. I'm proud of you, I said. Izuku blushed and looked away. You've grown exceptionally, and whatever fuinjutsu you used to keep the Nomu at bay was superbly useful. Well done indeed. I'm even more impressed that you managed to not only hold your own, but defeat Stain in hand-to-hand combat while your reserves were so low. Truly, I don't think that I mistake when I say that you fought him mostly quirkless, I said. The other two were looking at Izuku in awe. I wasn't that good, Ni-san. I shook my head. Don't sell yourself short. What you did today is something that most heroes aside from the top 10 would have failed to do on their own. And Shoto straightened up and looked at me. Your decision to use your ice to build a defensive structure to allow Izuku to fight at his full potential was very god. Excellent even, considering that many pro heroes would choose the glory of combat over actually saving civilians in danger, I said. He looked stunned at the praise I had given him, but nevertheless he accepted it. Shigaraki was shaking. Nothing was going as planned, and worst of all, that brat, or more precisely that brat's brother, took down the hero killer. Everyone was talking about Stain and the brat's brother, and no one was talking about him. It pissed him off so badly that he couldn't even think straight. Calm yourself, Tamura Shigaraki, said Kurogiri as he cleaned some plates at the new hideout of the League of Villains. That brat, why is no one talking about me? All they seem to care about is the stupid hero killer and that brat. He and his brother bot piss me off, following All Might so closely. Don't worry, Tamura, came a voice from the monitor. Sensei, said the man-child with reverence. This was just the opening act, Tamura. It may seem like you have failed, but that is wrong. This is your beginning, Tamura Shigaraki as the symbol of evil. All for one leaned back in his chair as he finished the conversation with his protege. Truly, he was progressing nicely. My lord, if I may be so bold, why do you plan on moving against the Yakuza now? Asked the doctor. Well, I suppose you should know this. Some time ago I received word that they were in possession of a quirk that could restore me to my original form. That and the quirk of the one known as Overhaul would have made excellent addition to my collection, said the Lord of Evil. The doctor spluttered, but, my lord, why would you let such a valuable quirk in the hands of those lesser than you? Ah, you see, they would have made an excellent obstacle for Tamura after my final battle with All Might. But now I need to be able to cull the number of symbols to better pave the way for Tamura's ascension. Katsuki was seething as he watched the news. All they ever talked about was how that damned Deku saved half and half an engine legs. These past few days had been a nightmare for him. He thought that the number 4 pro hero would help him better his quirk and hone his skills to better compete against Deku. It grated Katsuki to say this, but Izuku was strong. Easily the strongest in their entire year. After all, he did get the number 1 spot at the sports festival. Still, he couldn't get that line the old hermit said to him up on that mountain. "You are no hero." I annoyed the hell out of him. But Katsuki wasn't blind. The things that Best Jeanist said he lacked, public appeal and whatnot, that wasn't him. He was the one that took down the villain, not a child caretaker. Sure, he could save people and shit, but that's not the things he excelled at. All he could do was grit his teeth and bear it. He only had a few more days until he was finally out of here. I couldn't help but collapse on the couch when I got home. "Ni-san? Are you okay?" asked a concerned Izuku. "Yeah, sure, just tired. I haven't slept in 3 days," I said. "What? How could you be so irresponsible, Ni-san? You know that sleep deprivation leads to stupid mistakes," yelled Izuku, scandalized. I turned my head just enough so that I could see his face and let a small grin show. "With chakra I can mitigate the effects. The only problem is that I crash after I let go of the chakra that I have sustaining me." This seemed to calm Izuku down, though I did see him mutter something under his breath, most likely about idiot big brothers and such. Without even so much as a word, he went into the kitchen and began heating up some food. Now that I think about it, I am hungry. Slowly I pulled myself up in a more dignified position as Izuku came back with food for the both of us. "Thanks," I said. "No problem, Ni-san." We ate in silence for a while. "Hey, Ni-san, did Stain's ideals, did his words have any meaning, or were they just an empty ideal?" asked Izuku. I turned to him. "What brought this on?" I asked. "Well, it's just that he made so much sense, you know? And I don't know if it's right to agree with the ideals of a serial killer. I mean, he is a villain after all," said Izuku. I remained silent for a while, digesting this. I had honestly not expected Izuku to be this shaken by his experience. Obviously, I did expect some form of doubt, but not something so profound. "Was he even right?" asked Izuku. "I'm sorry? Was he even right to place me at the same level as All Might himself?" "Ah, I see. Damn you All Might and the burden you placed upon my family." "Izuku, do you remember what All Might told us after the USJ, about how One for All came to be?" He nodded. "Good things can come from anywhere, and good people are much the same. Unfortunately, the same is true for the other end of the spectrum. There are some people that just want to see the world burn and would do anything to make this twisted reality happen. Stain and his followers are anarchists pure and simple. They can't, or rather won't, see the greater implications of their actions, the lives they ruin and the devastation they inflict on society as a whole," I said. "But what about what Stain said? I looked through the files on Project Damocles and I know about all the corruption of the hero system, so isn't Stain even slightly right?" asked Izuku. I was a bit surprised. Project Damocles is one of my countermeasures against heroes. It stands as a literal sword hanging by a thread ready to decapitate hero society by exposing all the corruption in the HPSC and the top ranks of the heroes. I sighed and leaned back, setting down my food and looking straight at Izuku. "He's right," I said. Izuku looked stunned to hear me say that. "If the world was fair and normal, you and I would have never been in the situation we are now. By pre-quirk world standards, we are child soldiers fighting in a war we should have no business fighting in. Stain is right that heroes are corrupt. Heck, in the past 3 months I took down more than 50 CRTING heroes." "What?" asked Izuku, shocked. "Did you think that every hero is like your friends in UA? Even as they are now, your first-year friends are more powerful than 50% of heroes in Japan. How do you expect them to justify their salary without a constant supply of villains?" I said. "But that's wrong," yelled Izuku, outraged. "Of course it is, but they don't care. Most of these heroes gravitate towards poor neighborhoods where crime is still rampant. They don't have the strength or motivations to clean out these pockets of villains, so they cut a deal with them so that they don't get killed. I know it pains you to hear this, but just like One for All came from All for One, so did heroes spawn from villains. And just like the battle between the two brother quirks, the fight between heroes and villains grows more dangerous with each passing generation. In this fight, you and I are weapons, nothing more," I said. Izuku looked sad. It was to be expected. I had, after all, just shattered his worldview. "So, it's all useless? Me becoming a hero?" asked Izuku. "I wouldn't say that. You still have a purpose, but we shouldn't fight to uphold this frankly broken society, but change it so that the next generation would not have to know the terror of a villain attack," I said. "And All Might, where does he stand in all this?" asked Izuku. I paused for a bit. "That's the heart of the issue, isn't it? All Might is the literal symbol of the current era. and someone that Izuku not only looks up to, but admires to a frankly astonishing degree. All Might is just like you. He's just someone that wants to help people, but in his hubris he created the problems we face today. That is why I took up the mantle of symbol to keep down the devastation that All Might's fall will certainly produce. I said if I have to rate the most annoying things that I have to deal with, the media would easily take the top spot. Today is the day when the new hero rankings are announced. It's not an entirely stupid move. After all, with all the chaos that Stain created, what better way to pacify the population than to wave a shiny new thing in front of their faces? Of course, that's not considering the fact that I get to officially move up in the world. Before the event started, I got a letter from the Hero Commission saying that I reached number 9 in the ranks. A mind-boggling progression from what I was just a few months ago. Still, I can't help but feel that this action is meaningless. It's been a week since Izuku took down Stain. The currents of the underworld are already shifting. I can feel it in my very bones. Dark clouds are gathering, and with All for One on the loose, who knows what chaos may befell the world. Honestly, it's not even the slight uptick in villain activity that bothers me. No, it's the lack of coordinated villain activity that bothers me. So far, all the cases that we've linked to the proliferation of Stain's anarchist ideals have been isolated incidents. A few murder psychopaths and a couple of vigilantes, mostly middle school teenagers emboldened by that video that decided to take to the streets and clean up society's scum. Most often than not by attacking popular heroes in their area. It wouldn't be so bad if said kids didn't have so-called villainous quirks. Honestly, this entire situation is slowly turning into one giant mess, just waiting for the spark needed to blow it all to hell and back. It's grating me that I can do nothing but stand back and watch it all burn. After all, what could I even do? To the public, I am the darling child. The one that oh so selflessly threw away a lifetime of comfort and security to protect the people. All it took was one photo leak of me asleep at my desk over a mountain of paperwork with a conveniently placed clock in the background. The photo was also made in such a way that it was of low quality so that no one would question if the event was staged or not. Gran Torino was right. I can't go on faking this facade of the perfect golden child. I've got too much blood on my hands to be one, but then again, I'm not the hero these people deserve. I'm the one they need. Honestly, this entire situation annoys me. The civilians are entirely dependent on the heroes. That is not a healthy way to form a society, and honestly, if I didn't know better, I'd say that they're trying with all their might to revert to a caste system with heroes at the top, villains and vigilantes at the middle, and the civilians at the bottom. Enough griping, time to get back to work. All for One is planning something. A few of his old friends that managed to survive his fall relatively intact have all taken a short vacation, all at the same time and only for a day. This is no way a coincidence. For Izuku, school was shit. From the moment he stepped foot in the class, everyone surrounded him and began bombarding him with questions. They were all saying how cool and strong he was that he was able to defeat such a villain by himself. Izuku knew the answer to that. He didn't take down Stain by himself, not truly. His ideology was still chewing at him from the inside, and the heart-to-heart with his brother didn't help matters. In fact, it made them worse. Honestly, it was so much easier when he was little. Back then, the heroes were always the good guys and the villains were the bad guys. Thankfully, Aizawa entered the class soon enough. "Good morning, class," said their bored teacher. "Good morning, Mr. Aizawa," replied the mindless sheep class. Class. "You're all here, I see. I trust that your internships were enlightening," asked Aizawa. A lot of heads nodded, though a few remained still. "Good. Now, as you know, the final exams are coming up, so don't slack off. You'll have a practical portion as well as a theoretical one. Furthermore, those who failed don't get to go to the summer training camp in the woods," said Aizawa. The class erupted in excited cheers that were quickly silenced by Aizawa flashing his quirk-given red eyes. "Now, onto other matters," Midoriya called out Aizawa. "Why yes, Mr. Aizawa," answered back Izuku. "Due to your stunt with the hero killer, the principal has decided that you should take the provisional license exam that is the closest. That means that you are to take the exam the very next day after your final exam," said Aizawa. Izuku cringed. He was being singled out, again, and honestly, he didn't know if this was meant to be a punishment or a reward. Somehow, he could see Aizawa making it both. "Anyways, that is all for today. Help, get over here. We have to use our quirks together, otherwise we can't stop him." "Oh, God, he's her gah." Static filled the radio frequencies and the villains were quiet. Their last line of escape was cut off and Rikudou was out on the hunt. It was at this point that the leader of the band of villains wondered why he even bothered to rob a bank in this city. After all, it was infamous for being the personal stomping ground of the new number 9 pro hero, Rikudou. Rikudou was a new name in the fight between heroes and villains, but he quickly made his reputation known. There were rumors all thought the underground, rumors of hideouts going dark and being found utterly destroyed, of high-level brokers captured and their entire networks and associates being destroyed. In all these events, the ones that reached the public at least, Rikudou was the one credited for the action. He had heard from the elders among the villains, retired folk whose glory days had long since gone, that it was the same when All Might rose to power. Only back then there was the so-called symbol of evil to oppose him. Now, no one stood against Rikudou's relentless onslaught. All in all, it was difficult to see him as the 15-year-old kid he was. Heck, even to most civilians, Rikudou was an adult, not a teenager, or so were their opinions of him. A harsh knock was heard from the door. The two villains looked at each other and prepared themselves for their last stand. The door was blasted inward and from the smoke came a length of chain that wrapped up the lead villain. His companion squeaked and he too was struck by a gigantic war fan, knocking him unconscious. From the door came forth Rikudou looking pissed and half-dressed, considering that he was topless. "You know what I really despise about you, villain?" asked Rikudou as he pulled back on the chain, dragging the terrified man to him. The man shook his head. "It's the fact that you always choose the most god-awful hours to pull this kind of shit. Do you have any idea on the amount of paperwork I need to fill out after I catch you mongrels, do you?" yelled Rikudou in the thug's face. The thug was shaking and pissing himself. A normal reaction when faced with a pissed-off man who was more than capable of ripping out someone's spine with his bare hand. Seeing what had happened, Rikudou wrinkled his nose and locked his eyes with the thug. The Sharingan spun and all the man's secrets were left bare for him to see. Shortly afterwards, the man dropped unconscious and Rikudou scowled. Another low level without any useful information. Finally, the day of the practical exam arrived and Izuku was exhausted. He'd had to train twice as hard since not only will he be facing off against whatever the teachers decide to throw at them, but he'd also soon be up against some of the most experienced hero course students from multiple schools, and it seemed like that. Like his brother before him, he was doing it alone. He was doing this all alone. "Okay, now that you're all here, let's start this test. For today you will be paired off against a teacher. Your goal is to either ensure that one of you escapes through the designated door or you capture a teacher," said Aizawa. "Any questions?" "No, good," he said without giving the students any time to ask their questions. Then came the team assignments and Izuku's heart dropped. Of CO with Kachan of all people. And that's not all, he was supposed to either evade or capture freaking All Might. The second part wasn't as daunting as it may appear at first sight. After all, the teachers were given a mobility handicap, and although All Might was a great hero, he wasn't unbeatable. Madara had proven that last year when he won against All Might all on his lonesome. And therein lied the problem for Izuku. Even now Katsuki was scowling, more than likely at the perceived slight the teachers had made against him when they dared suggest that he should work with Izuku of all people. It was sad, but Izuku knew that Katsuki had no chance to stand where he stood now. It wasn't a matter of willpower or determination. It was a simple fact that Izuku was better trained and better prepared to face such a situation than Katsuki, and he doubted that Katsuki would ever accept a hand offered in help. So this left him at an impasse. He could go ahead and plan for Katsuki's reckless charge, but he had the feeling that he should at least try to bring him on board before he discarded him altogether. Unfortunately, Katsuki was gone by the time Izuku made up his mind to speak with him. It was so that with a long-suffering sigh, Izuku retreated to the camera control room to get a sneak peek at the others' battles and maybe plan a contingency or two. Thank God that he was allowed the full use of his equipment, otherwise he would have really been screwed. Team Bakugo and Midoriya vs All Might, start. The announcement was followed by a loud horn and the countdown timer beginning to tick down. Without even waiting a second, Katsuki took off. "Wait, Kachan, please work with me. We're up against All Might for God's sake. You can't just waltz in and expect to beat him," said Izuku. "Oh yeah? Well, watch me, you damned nerd. I'll win an indisputable victory, here and now, and I'll show everyone that I'm the best," yelled Katsuki, not even breaking his stride. On the inside, Izuku was screaming, "Could you stop, for once in your life, from being such a jackass? You can't do this alone." "Why?" Whatever Izuku was going to say was cut off by a backhand from Katsuki. It didn't knock Izuku down, but it was more than enough to send him a few steps back and make his nose bleed. "Now, you listen here, you damned nerd," began Katsuki slowly as he looked at Izuku. "I've had enough half-assessed victories. This is not going to be one of them. I'll get an indisputable win, no matter what." Izuku didn't reply as he was too busy trying to make sense of what just happened. It was only the pressure wave of air that brought him out of his reverie long enough to bring out a shield so he didn't get blown off. Unfortunately, Katsuki wasn't so lucky and was blown off without much of a problem, though he did manage to land relatively close by. "Damn it, I ran out of time," thought Izuku. Looking around, he could see the devastation that All Might brought. "This is going to be a pawn. Kachan, you okay?" asked Izuku. Course I am, you damned nerd. Now where's All Might? I'll beat him up good." "Ha, you think you can defeat me so easily, heroes?" came All Might's voice from the smoke. Looking up at his favorite hero, Izuku couldn't help but compare him to his own brother. Was it strange that he found All Might to be lacking the same presence that Madara usually boasted? Katsuki's mind, though, was focused on other matters as he charged straight at All Might, hoping to blind him with a new move called the stun grenade. Izuku took this opportunity to unseal the gunbai he took from his brother's armory and approached All Might stealthily. All Might took notice of this but was unable to do anything but widen his eyes as he was smacked away by the giant war fan into one of the nearby buildings. With 2 signs from his left hand, Izuku slammed his hand on the ground. Fuinjutsu Earth Style. Boulder Dome. 2 half boulders rose from either side of the place where All Might fell and smashed together in an attempt to squash All Might. Knowing that this wouldn't hold up for long, Izuku picked up Katsuki by the back of his shirt and pulled him into a back alley, just in time to escape All Might's sight. Phew, we're safe now. Can we please talk strategy, Kachan? We can't afford to make too many mistakes, especially not against All Might, said Izuku. Katsuki didn't answer, and was instead looking down at his hands with a hooded gaze. Kachan, asked Izuku. I'll beat him. You hear that, you nerd? I'll beat him, and while he's occupied with me you run like the little bitch you are, said Katsuki. Right, like that worked out so well last time you attempted it. Come on, even a child could see that you don't stand a chance in hell of even being a pebble in All Might's path, said Izuku with more than a little bite in his tone. Katsuki flinched and looked up at Izuku with hate. Izuku didn't care, though. Can you lure him out in the open? I should be able to restrain him just enough for us to make our escape, said Izuku. Before Katsuki could reply, Izuku was gone, having flash-stepped to a nearby roof to prepare the tags he would need to craft a barrier of sufficient strength to keep All Might inside. Back in the alleyway, Katsuki was seething. In his mind, even now, Izuku was looking down on him, so he'd show the nerd and bring down All Might by himself. Getting to his feet, Katsuki went in search of All Might. From the rooftops, Izuku was following the progress of his so-called teammate. It was obvious that he wouldn't work with him, so that left Izuku with only one other option, to use Katsuki as a stepping stone, no matter how disgraceful it felt. He was waiting for Katsuki to engage All Might so that his barrier could be set. It was a devious one, this barrier, because it prevented the ones trapped inside from using their quirks. Now, this would be a problem for All Might and his secret, but Madara had constructed a seal specially designed for All Might just for such an occasion. Looking down, Izuku saw Katsuki firing his gauntlets at All Might. The smoke was enough for Izuku to launch his kunai with the sealing tags and activate the barrier. Fuinjutsu. 4 wind prison from each tag lines of chakra coalesced and formed an even bigger ring around All Might and Katsuki. Without their power, they were easy prey for the chakra chains that bound them, and Izuku easily body flickered out of the arena. All in all, it was a good fight, even if it left a very sour taste in Izuku's mouth. Summer came quickly after the whole stain debacle. After my ascension into the top 10, I suddenly found myself working for longer and longer hours and lacking any time to train myself. Luckily, the fact that I knew the shadow clone jutsu helped me immensely. Honestly, if I didn't know better, I'd say that this jutsu was specifically created to ease one's administrative burdens. At any rate, it is a useful took in my kit. The only downside to it is the clone's fragility, something that I still haven't found a way to remedy. Still, I can't complain too much. After all, it did allow me enough time to learn wood release. I haven't done much with it except for being able to make trees grow taller, but with enough time, I'm sure that I'll reach the level of proficiency that Yamato was able to achieve in the Narutoverse at the very least. After that, well, you know the saying, hashirama's the limit. Izuku's been growing well these past few months. When I saw the recording of his provisional license exam, I was impressed. It seems that Izuku truly is lightning-natured, and he even managed to get a bootleg version of the Chidori to work for him. Highly impressive, considering that it took me the better part of a year training with it on and off in order to get that kind of proficiency. Slowly but surely, it seems that Izuku is working his way up to the lightning chakra armor of the Rikages. I mean, I'm barely proficient in the technique, and it's doing wonders for me both in terms of defense and offense, and that's besides the absolute miracle it does in terms of mobility. If Izuku manages to get to the level of the legendary 3rd Rikage, one for all powered Sage mode is already making a monster out of him. Adding the ultimate shield and spear of the lighting chakra armor on top of that is more than a bit of overkill in my opinion. And that's before we even take into account his uzumaki-like proficiency with seals. Speaking of seals, we recently had resistance seals placed on us. It was becoming difficult for Izuku and me to get any sort of meaningful workout done that doesn't involve beating the ever-loving shit out of each other. That's another area that Izuku's been excelling recently. I don't know if it's because he can use more nature energy or what, but he seems to have developed some sort of battle precognition. True, it's nowhere near the Sharingan's battle precognition, even when I had just unlocked it, but it's there and it's enough to give Izuku an edge in combat. Where before he was guaranteed to lose against me no matter what, nowadays it can really go either way in a pure taijutsu match, if I don't use any chakra at all, that is. His chakra capacity is increasing almost exponentially. Right now, he's at what I could only consider to be low to mid-jonin. This increase came with an increase in his capacity to utilize the wellspring of power that is one for all to near 20% continuously. Luckily enough, Izuku isn't turning into a musclehead, which is a good thing. The absolute last thing this world needs right now is All Might version 2, and yes, I'm looking at Unitai when I say this. Over the past 4 months, Izuku has made incredible advancements in the field of Fuinjutsu. He managed to take Fuinjutsu to a level one could have never imagined. Jutsu, barriers, traps and even restraints, all made possible by Izuku's work in the field. I couldn't be prouder, and while it's true that he's shit at ninjutsu, that doesn't really matter when you can move faster than most humans can react and punch with enough strength to collapse a decent-sized building. As I sit here and look over what we've accomplished so far, I can't help but feel a modicum of pity for the rest of humanity. Very few will ever get to experience the feel of chakra rushing through your body or the blood-pumping thrill of battle at the kind of level that Izuku and I are at. The use and study of chakra will go on, that is not an issue. Even if Izuku and I fall before we can pass on our knowledge, chakra will be rediscovered someday far in the future. This being said, I can't but imagine what a future community of chakra wielders would be like, and how will the world at large take to our existence. I can't imagine the world governments being happy that such powerful people exist in the world. I should begin planning, just in case it ever comes to light that I'm actually quirkless. It was a hot summer day when Izuku got the notice that he was leaving for the summer training camp. I watched him go without much interest. After all, I too would join him later on at the camp. Seeing as Ua has become a target for villains, Nezu has asked me to accompany the student on their trip. Well, half of it. Honestly, it's more of a cover so that I can train in peace for at least a week. Heck, even the state-of-the-art lab I installed in my hideout has done nothing but collect dust for the past 4 months. I'm still worried, though. Sending the entire first-year hero course students out into the woods, far away from any town and any kind of support in case of an attack, is reckless. Sure, there will be 6 pro heroes with them, 7 if you count me, but I won't be there all the time. Being the number 9 pro hero is not easy work, despite what the tabloids might say. I can understand the reasoning behind this move. With the random nature of this camp, it will be harder for villains to track the students to their training site. It would have been an excellent strategy if not for the small fact that our enemy is a 200-year-old quirk-stealing sociopath who's definitely not going to fall for this trick. And let's not forget that he has his own professional spy network. One so good that I'll bet my sword that Nezu is searching high and low for any potential traitor among UA's staff and students. I set down my cup of coffee and go to get dressed. I'm not taking any weapons or armor with me today. Just a change of clothes and my workout clothes and whatever toileting necessities I might need. It's very convenient to carry everything with me nowadays since Izuku managed to crack the code for the storage seal. After I finish packing the clothes storage seal and roll it back up, I shove it in my pants pocket. On my way out, I pick up a meter-long and relatively thick roll of paper. This is the battle scroll, as Izuku constantly insists on calling it. Because I'm not as proficient or knowledgeable with seals as Izuku, I can't pull off complex seals from memory and simply slap them down with chakra engraving. No, I have to use the tried and true method of unfurling the seal and slapping it down on the thing I want to use it on, or not. It all depends on the situation, and only then can I actually activate the seal. Take for example Roia's. I have to use the 7 talismans and throw them in the air, before I can activate the main seal, which is one of the few that I know by heart. Izuku doesn't need to do that, he can just whip up the seal in midair in its completed form. Now yes, technically I could use the Sharingan to simply memorize the seal and regurgitate it as many times as necessary. But I'm sorry to tell you that Fuinjutsu doesn't work like that. You have to be perfectly aware of how each strand of chakra interacts with the rest, and that can only be achieved with practice. A lot of practice, the kind that I didn't have time to do since I came onto the stage as a pro hero. Moving on, I left the house, scroll safely tucked in a hard plastic cover across my back. With that I took off running up the nearest building and across the rooftops. Normally I would just fly or run normally wherever I would want to go, but I felt like I had to stretch my legs today. An hour later I arrived in the parking lot where the summer training camp will begin. As I jump over the highway, I see a black car already parked there. From the car 3 people come out. Mandalay, Pixie Bob, good to see you, I called out. The 2 seemed surprised to see me. Rikudou, how did you manage to get here so fast? Asked Mandalay. I ran, I said blankly. They looked unsure and confused. I turned my child of the group. And who's this? I asked with a quirked eyebrow. Oh, that's my nephew, Koda. Koda, this is Rikudou, he's the number 9 pro hero, said Mandalay. The kid scoffed and looked away. Okay, that's the first time that has happened. I look at Mandalay, who looks at the scene with sorrow but does not seem surprised by it. Strange, though this is not my priority right now. Is everything set? I ask. Yes, of course, everything's set, said Mandalay. We're ready to rumble, said Pixie Bob with a cheer. Good, just so you know, I'll have my brother skip this so-called initiation, I said. This surprised them. Not that we're completely opposed, but why? Asked Mandalay. I looked out at the beautiful scenic valley and pointed to it. Do you want all that to go up in flames? I asked. This seemed to shock the 2 heroes. What? Surely he's not that powerful. Not even Endeavor can do that much damage, said Pixie Bob. Well, normally he wouldn't, but I checked my armory before I left and there were more than enough incendiary grenades missing to burn twice that amount of forest, and that's before I go into his personal offensive toolkit. Suffice it to say, the test will be too easy if you throw Izuku into the mix, I said. The two heroines looked at each other somewhat worriedly. It's just my luck that in that exact moment, the bus with Class 1A arrived. All the kids came out of the bus and into the parking lot. They seemed somewhat confused as to why they were here. "Ni-san, what are you doing here?" asked Izuku as he noticed me. This drew the attention of several of his classmates. From the looks on their faces I could tell that they were surprised to see me here. "I'll be joining you at the training camp, mostly to act as added security. Now gather round so that I can explain what's going to happen next," I said. It took a while, but the kids all shuffled into a loose half-circle around us. I sent a small nod at Aizawa and he nodded back. I could see him skulking back to the bus. Clapping, I drew the attention of the students. "Now that everyone's here, we can begin the summer training camp," I said. The Iida Saiyan put his hand up. "Excuse me, sir, but this is a parking lot. What are we supposed to do here?" he asked. "Oh, that's simple, but I'll let Mandalay explain more. For now, Izuku, come here for a bit," I said. Izuku stepped up somewhat unsure. I was after all still smiling and he knew that wasn't a good thing. I put my hand out. "The incendiary grenades you took from the armory," I said. Izuku went red at being caught red-handed like that. A gasp was heard from his classmates along with surprised cries of "Midoriya." It took a bit of fidgeting from Izuku and a flash of the Sharingan from me, but I managed to get him to cough up a small mound of paper bombs, kunai, and a few scrolls filled with a few hundred grenades. Looking back I could see that his classmates were clearly shocked. I turned to address them. "Now, don't be discouraged. Izuku had a good idea when he decided to stock up on weapons before he left his house, but the sad reality is that you won't be allowed to carry a small arsenal of weapons on your person at all times, nor will you be able to do so. This training camp was made to test your limits, and so without further interruption, I hand you off to Mandalay. Except Izuku, that is," I said. "Wait, that's not fair. Why does he get special treatment?" protested the kid with purple balls for hair. I looked at him. "Don't think this is anything easy. Izuku is simply on another level than the rest of you. It would be unfair to limit him by making him slow down for you," I said. Izuku cringed at the tone I used and Bakugo chose that moment to explode. "Are you looking down on us, you fucker?" yelled Bakugo. "Watch your tone with me, you mongrel. Don't think that I won't embed your skull 6 feet in the ground simply because you're a student," I said in a cold tone as I flashed my Sharingan. The killing intent that was leaking off me made the people present take a step back, except Izuku, that is. "Ni-san, enough," said Izuku as he released his own chakra presence to combat mine. I said nothing as I reined in my power. "Sorry about that, Mandalay, if you will." This seemed to snap her out of her daze. "Oh, right. The training camp is at the base of that mountain. Your job is to reach it before lunch, so in about 3 hours at the earliest. Since this is private property, you can use your quirks." The students looked at one another. "I have a bad feeling about this one, guys," said Kaminari. "Yeah, me too," said Kirishima. The class began to slowly back away and towards the bus. Izuku came to my side and gave them a pitying look. I began folding hand seals and slapped my palm on the ground. "Earth style. Mobile Earth," I said. The ground on which the students were standing moved and flipped them off the cliff and into the forest below. From here on out it was Pixie Bob's turn. I turned to see Izuku looking at me expectantly. "So, what now?" he asked. "Now we head to camp. It's been a while since we sparred and I need to check our progress with the resistance seals. Afterwards, we'll train your lightning chakra," I said. He nodded and vanished in a body flicker. I turned to the other pro heroes. "I'll meet you at the camp," I said and followed with my own body flicker. The remaining heroes looked at the space where Madara had just been. Mandalay turned to Aizawa, but he cut her off before she could ask anything. "Don't bother trying to understand them. I trust the problem children enough to know that they won't slack off. It's for the best that they train separately anyways," said Aizawa. Mandalay shut her mouth and nodded. She had known that Rikudou and his brother were special cases. Nezu had told her so from the beginning, but only now did she truly understand what he meant. Returning to normal speeds, I took a seat at the bench where Izuku was waiting for me. "So, Ni-san, what are we going to do?" he asked me. I restrained a cringe myself. He was glaring at me. I should have expected this, honestly. Izuku is a sucker for fairness and hates being the one apart. A remnant from his shitty childhood. "Well, first we're going to go over some jutsu that I have in mind for you. I noticed that besides your fists and that thing you do when you try to coalesce lightning chakra into something akin to my Chidori, you have no offensive tools if you are ever in a position that makes you unable to use Fuinjutsu," I said. Izuku grimaced. He knew this weakness of his then. "So what are you going to teach me, Ni-san?" he asked somewhat excitedly. I grinned at him and put out my hand. In my palm a Rasengan whirled to life. Izuku's eyes went wide at the jutsu and grinned back. I let the Rasengan dissipate. But first, let's have a spar. It's been a while since we went full force against each other, I said. By this point Izuku's grin turned bloodthirsty as his eyes shone green with power. Ah, there it was. The battle maniac that Izuku had suppressed inside for almost 10 years. I too, took a combat stance and at an unseen signal we exploded into motion. The rest of Class 1A trudged through the forest defeating beast after beast, but it was not easy going. They were beginning to lose steam and with their objectively biggest powerhouse gone, the pressure on Katsuki and Shoto to perform was that much greater. You know, I hate to be that guy, but we could have really used Midoriya's help right about now, said Shiro. I know what you mean, man. These things would be weak to physical attacks from Midoriya, said Kaminari. The rest of the class didn't voice their opinion, but it was quite clear to see where they stood. Normally this exercise wouldn't be difficult, but then again they normally had Izuku on their side. For the first time in their lives some of the students began to wonder if this is how hero society would be like if All Might was no longer around. With top heroes scrambling to hold back the tide of villains with ever-increasing power. It took them several good hours, but they eventually managed surprising they found Aizawa waiting for them along with the other heroes they encountered at the bus stop. The surprising fact was that the Midoriya brothers were nowhere to be found. Sensei, where is Midoriya? Asked Iida just as he was about to answer. An explosion rocked the clearing. Aizawa gave a defeated sigh as Mandalay of the Pussycats looked at the location of the explosion with worry. Don't worry, they're just winding down now, said Aizawa. Just then, a streak of green shot out from the trees and into a larger clearing near the camp. A second, brighter streak of blue followed. The two streaks clashed ever so often with each other making the ground where it happened buckle and crater under the tremendous pressure they were exerting. That doesn't look like they're winding down, said Kirishima. You weren't here a few hours ago. At least they're not throwing lightning at each other anymore, said Aizawa in a depressed tone. Wait, throw lightning? Wasn't it fire that he was throwing in the sports festival? Asked Kaminari. As if to spite them, Madara returned to a normal speed as he sped through some hand seals. Seemingly catching Izuku off guard, Madara managed to connect a stream of lightning with Izuku, only for the latter to seemingly block the lightning with his own green one and redirect the stream of blue lightning at a nearby tree setting it on fire. Seeing this, Madara spat out a water ball at the tree as he dodged Izuku's counterattack. As soon as the motion was over, the two once again vanished in streaks of blue and green. The class looked over dumbly at the spot where this short exchange had taken place. What the fuck? Asked Katsuki, seemingly voicing everyone's thoughts. Okay, that's enough gawking. Get cleaned up and take your bags from the bus. Tonight, we're cooking dinner, but that won't happen again, said Aizawa. That seemed to spurn the others into motion. An hour later, they were all cleaned up and hungry as all hell. It just so happened that right then, a thoroughly exhausted Izuku came out of the forest being half carried by his brother. Midoriya, came the cry of some of the class. Oh, hey guys, came back an overly cheery response. That seemed to take some of the students by surprise for a bit. It was easy to see why considering that he was missing most of his clothes and he had cuts and bruises on his exposed skin as well as several burns. That being said, Madara was far from being in pristine condition himself. His t-shirt was dirty, and he had more than a few marks denoting that someone had used his face to break rock. Though in the end, it was obvious that Madara came out on top. Come on, you little battle maniac. You dragged this fight on long enough. Let's get some food in your stomach and put you to sleep, said Madara as he dragged Izuku after him. After I made Izuku eat something whatever force was keeping him awake seemingly failed as he passed out. I sighed and picked him up and tucked him in one of the spare sleeping bags in the boys' room. After that, I headed out to where dinner was served. After all that fight may not have been a drain on my chakra, but it sure as hell was one on my stamina and I was hungry. I didn't expect Izuku to put up that much of a fight to be honest. Going for nearly 7 hours non-stop is quite something. If I didn't have chakra to sustain me, I would have probably died of exhaustion. What truly surprised me was the near exponential power increase as he reached a stable 20% one for all. As he was right now, he was creating bursts of air pressure with each punch. I can't help but wonder what his power would be like when he manages to reach stable 100%. Oi, Midoriya-san over here. The call from the students snapped me out of my musing. I probably shouldn't, but I will indulge myself for this night. After all, it would not do for the famed Rikudou to be seen mingling with lowly mongrels. As I approached, I could see that most of the class had gathered around a campfire alongside a good portion of Class B. What are you still doing out? You do realize that tomorrow's training will not be easy, I said. Yeah, but we're toasting marshmallows on a campfire, said the pink one, Ashido I believe her name was. The irony in that statement was that only she was toasting marshmallows on a stick. Hey, I know, how about we tell stories? Midoriya-san, will you join us? Asked Kaminari. I took a seat in a spot that was most surely left open for Izuku. "Call me Madara. It'll be less confusing this way," I said. "It felt nice to unwind like this. You know, you're not really how I expected you to be, Ribbit," said Asui, the frog quirk girl. I raised an eyebrow at that comment. "Yeah, I mean, you were such a badass at USJ and the entire media knows just how dedicated you are to your job, and I just didn't expect you to be so laid back and honest. Especially since Aizawa-sensei said that he didn't really think you were a hero," said Kirishima. The group was silent as I mulled over what I had heard. Even those few from Class B were listening attentively. I sighed. Aizawa is correct. I may not be the money-grabbing type, but I'm not a hero. You see, by my definition, a hero is someone that achieves great deeds and becomes immortalized in legend that will persist far beyond his own life. In today's world, a hero is someone who selflessly gives their all for the benefit of others, someone that goes to incredible lengths to save just one more person. I am not that type of person. My choice to become a hero is solely a pragmatic one. Being a hero is a sure way to gain prestige quickly, and the license is useful if I ever need to defend myself," I said. They were silent after my admission. Now, I don't normally go around spitting out my life story to every new person I meet, but just like when I told the Nezu and the others about chakra at the beginning of my stay at UA, my tale now has another purpose. "But then, how did you get to be All Might's successor?" asked a thoroughly confused Kendo. I chuckled. "Who said I was his successor? I certainly didn't," I said. "Beeb at the press conference," began Momo, but I cut her off. "I was announced as his heir, that is true. But heir doesn't mean successor. I may have taken up his role as head of Might Tower, but I am not the true heir to his ideals and conviction. His did not pass on to me his will. I am merely a placeholder until the true heir is ready," I said. They were silent as they digested what they heard. The idea that out there is another that will one day be the successor to All Might and myself was quite something. "It's Izuku, isn't it?" All the students gave their full attention to Shoto as he looked at me with narrowed eyes. "He's All Might's true successor, isn't he?" said Shoto. I looked him straight in the eyes. "He is," I acknowledged. "Then why did you take his spot?" asked Uraraka, fists clenched in righteous fury. "Bold of you to assume that I even want this spot." This got a reaction out of her. "Tell me, do you know how much time All Might has left as a hero?" "A year? Less, I'll tell you. Right now, he can only use his quirk for at most 1.5 hours a day, and he spends most of that time using it to keep up the form you're all accustomed to in order to try and pass on whatever he can to the next generation before he inevitably dies. This condition is a result of a battle he fought some 6 years ago," I said. This sent a wave of shock through the students. "Who could wound All Might like that?" asked Shoto. I closed my eyes as I gathered my thoughts. This is a story I do not share lightly. By the mere fact that I told you about All Might's reduced state means that I have broken that man's trust. You will keep whatever you learn here to yourselves. What I will tell you will more than likely frighten you, and if come tomorrow you wish to leave the hero course, I will not hold it against you. I'm telling you this because as UA students, and more importantly as classmates and friends of the true successor to the symbol of peace, you will inevitably be targeted by villains belonging to the org's arch nemesis such as the League of Villains. I'm not going to baby you. Whatever childhood you may have left ends now. From now on you will be soldiers in the war against the symbol of evil, also known as All for One," I said. The mere mention of the name sent shivers down the spines of those who heard it. "Who is he, and why haven't we heard about him?" asked Shoto. He was leaning forward, curious about this facet of history that he had never heard about. All for One story is one that has long since transcended into legend. The most accurate version of events we have today goes like this. Sometime at the beginning of quirks themselves, there was a man with the power to take the quirks of others and use them for himself as well as bestow them upon whomever he saw fit. Using this power, he carved himself a place in the underworld using the chaos of the era and his ability to redistribute quirks to ensure the absolute loyalty of his followers. Somewhere along the line he either discovered a quirk or a set of quirks that grant him immortality. He has reigned since then as the Emperor of Evil. All Might is the first hero to stand against him and win, or should I be more accurate, he was the first hero to survive. I paused for a bit. After the USJ attack I confirmed that All for One lives on as the puppet master behind Tamura Shigaraki and the League of Villains. When the time comes, and make no mistake that it will, I will be the one to lead the charge against All for One. The little clearing was silent. Of course, I didn't tell them the full story. One for All is still secret knowledge, kept ever from the Hero Commission, but they now knew enough to make an informed decision. With All for One on the move, I had to ensure the future of Hero Society if All Might and I fell in battle. This will be a test of the heart and mind to these kids. The ability and will to stand against such immeasurable power for the sake of protecting those behind your back is essential in the times to come. Silently I stood up and headed for the shared teacher's room where I would sleep. As I passed through the lounge I was met with a still awake Aizawa working on something on his computer. "What are you doing up?" I asked. "Couldn't sleep, might as well do something productive with my time." He lifted his eyes and narrowed them at me. You told them, didn't you? I nodded and sat down in the armchair next to him as he mumbled to himself about problem children. It was necessary, I said. They're still kids. They shouldn't have to deal with this, said Aizawa. You're right, they shouldn't. But then again, they shouldn't have to go through such intensive training just so that they could take that stupid license exam and have a way to legally protect themselves against villains. You're turning them into child soldiers, Aizawa. At least I have the decency to not beat around the bush when it comes down to it. They deserve to know what they're up against. At the very least, it isn't too late for them to withdraw from the hero course and find a safer path in life, but we will know that those that remain are mentally prepared for what we're about to do to them, I said. Aizawa held my gaze for a while before breaking away to stare out the window. I took this K as a dismissal and went to bed.